All right, guys, we are back again in the Dynamic Man podcast today. It's been a minute, and I want you guys, before we go into this, because we're moving up in the world here. We're moving up in the world with the show, because I'm actually going to be putting things on the screen now, moving in the big leagues. I'm getting rid of like my boomer tech phobia, and I'm figuring out some basic things about making a presentation. So we are going to be talking about a couple of different things, three things actually today. And they're all themes that have happened on X in the last few days. And, I had been considering writing blog posts on or posts from my email list, which you guys should obviously get on if you haven't yet. You get a free copy of my book, The 3 Pillars of Attraction. It's my first book. It's a mini book, so it's really like a manual of sorts. But you get a free copy of that when you join the list. That's patstedman.com/sign up. But what I want to talk about today is a few different topics on male low standards. There's a big thing that went around the other day about how men have low standards for women. We're going to talk about that comprehensively. We're also going to talk about the concept of emotional labor and how real it is, and really how do women break out of it? How can they break out of it? What men can do to help women break out of it? And the idea of intimacy in marriages, in why passion dies and why that doesn't have to happen, why you can actually keep having like the best sex of your life, and actually how to do it in a relationship, because I understand why a lot of people think it can't happen. It's a common problem. So I was going to talk about some of these things on the email list, but sometimes it's just a little bit, I want to do more of these shows for you guys. And sometimes, the email list already has so much going on it right now. It's already got like 3 emails a week. I think I don't want to oversaturate it. And sometimes it's easier to talk about topics on video. So without further ado, let's dive into this. So the first slide here, and by the way, I want to say, you're pretty soon you're going to see like me troll Emily May a little bit. I don't have any negative feelings towards her. You know what I mean? I understand. I want to just say this. There are some people who suck on X. There's a lot of people who suck, right? But most of the time with this kind of stuff, what we're doing is I can see where people are coming from. And sometimes though, you just gotta take a shot because they have a blind spot on it. But so the original tweet here is from Dimitri, right? He needs to be six feet tall, 6 inches, make 6 figures. Guys, she just has to be cute enough and occasionally blow me. This started a whole thing about women getting offended by men supposedly having low standards, right? For this kind of stuff. And she says, men think that they're being cute when they say things like, all I need is sex and food and for you not to be fat. But personally, I prefer to be chosen by a man who has higher standards. To which I replied, if men's standards are so low, then why does it seem impossible for most women to meet them? So in defense to Emily, and we're going to be talking about this in a little bit, I totally understand this idea that, women want to be considered for more than things that I don't want to say are out of their control, but things that they perceive are generic. And the reason for that is because women, and if you know anything about romancing women or seducing women, you understand that women like to be made to feel special. What is Rihanna, right? Wants you to make me feel like I'm the only girl in the world, right? They want to feel like they are so impressive and so amazing. But the problem with, and that's okay, you know what I mean? And actually, I think that you should choose a woman beyond these sort of fundamentals, right? Which I would say are being honored / respected, right, by the woman. So being pleasant and being supported, cared for, and obviously, sex, right? I mean, I even think like the food is important too, but I'll be honest, like I think even the food is more optional than a lot of guys will say because there's so many means of getting food I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm not saying it doesn't feel good. Like it's great getting a home cooked meal from a girl. Don't get me wrong. But I actually think even women producing food, cooking meals is less of a, issue in relationships than sex. And it's obvious because you can get meals through so many different ways. A lot of guys like cooking themselves, or you can go to restaurants. If we went back 50 years, like nobody went to restaurants. No, like restaurants were really not common until the last, 20, 30 years or so. Um, so there's all that stuff, right? But it's an old trope. Keep his belly full and his balls empty, and it's a good trope. It's correct. So women want to feel like they're valued for more than just their ability to, cook a man food and spread their legs because it makes them feel really redundant. I don't want to say redundant. Redundant's not the right word. It makes them feel very, um, replaceable, and so they don't feel special. But here's the thing. I'm right. Most women don't meet it, and you could tell. She had a comment. I didn't put it in here. She had a comment after this that was really like cope. She said, "Well, oh, we do, but we just don't, blah blah blah." Some like excuse about why they don't do it because men are, The bottom line is that like, and we can talk about different layers to this, right? But the bottom line is most women, like we're guys are talking about this so much, like please, like have some basic, nurturing skills, don't be fat, and have sex with me. That's like really, please just do that. Girls are like, oh, he has such low standards, but most women don't do it. Like, I mean, in America, like the obesity rating's out of control, absolutely out of control. And look, it's out of control for men too. Okay, I'm not trying to say that men don't get fat, right? It's only women, but the point here is that the point here is that if we're talking about what women are doing, women are not doing it. They are not doing it. Most women are not doing it. Most women are out of shape. So if a standard for men is to be thin, most women aren't doing it. That we can just say that. That's the statistical evidence. It's not happening. So then you have the next one, right? About whether or not they're having sex a lot. Most women aren't doing that either. They're not. Not in relationships. There is like a slew of couples getting divorced because of issues around sex. And while there's no question that sometimes it's that the woman wants to have sex and the man doesn't, that's maybe 20 to 25% of the time. 75 to 80% of the time, it's the other way around. And the man's in a relationship with the woman, and the sex is either dried up completely or it just sucks. It's duty sex. It's not enjoyable. So it's disingenuous for a woman to say that. And the cooking thing, I mean, a lot of women don't cook at all today, right? So it's disingenuous to say that, oh, well, yeah, we do all that stuff, or to say that men have low standards when women aren't meeting those standards. They're not meeting them. You can say that, you know, like a lot, and I'll say this: the reason that women have such a big issue and they call it low standards, and guys are not going to be shocked by this, it's because what they value themselves as, men aren't valuing them as. So men say, I just want these three things. And a woman says, but, oh, well, so you don't, like, you have such low standards. Like, you don't care. You don't want a girl who's like got this high paying job, or you don't want a girl who's got this prestigious degree, or you don't like a girl who's like, funny and quirky, and guys are, so it's really like they're trying to reframe what men want as low standards. That's all it is, really, at the end of the day. I mean, like I said, there's these other inputs about wanting to feel special, but these are things that women have a lot of, your average woman has a lot of difficulty doing. And so rather than accept that they're falling short of the standards, they'll just simply say that men have low standards, therefore they're not going to meet them. Because they are things that, virtually speaking, every woman can meet. And I think that is the element that frustrates them so much, is because I know there's always exceptions, but let's say, virtually speaking, every woman can be in shape. She can be fit. Some can be thinner than others, easier than others, but every woman can be fit. Every woman can learn how to cook, and every woman can have sex. Okay? Any woman, so these are not, these are universal weighing variables, right? So being good at them doesn't make you feel special. But like anything in life, sometimes you got to focus on the fundamentals. So I encourage women to focus on these fundamentals, because men are really frustrated. And you can say men are simple, and maybe they are simple, but that should be great, because that means that you have an easy route to making them happy. Why wouldn't you take an easy route to getting the love that you want? The man is going to treat you phenomenally because you give him these 3 fundamental things. Then why not just do it? And the paradox is this: if women did do that, then men would appreciate them more and more for the other things that they bring to the table. They would appreciate the intelligence. They'd appreciate her sense of humor. They'd appreciate, any little talent or whatever she has, right? It's easier to appreciate when you're getting your own needs met. And so then if she doesn't derive her own sense of self-worth from doing these things that make a man happy, which we can debate about whether that is okay or not, but it's the reality with a lot of women. But if a lot of women were doing these things to make the men in their life happy, most men are going to then start to value them on the things that they want to be valued for as well. Because if a woman hits those 3 fundamental criteria, then everything else she brings to the table instantly makes her stand out from the rest of the pack. But if you can't do the fundamentals, then a lot of guys are going to get frustrated being with you. And importantly, and this was a tweet I talked about today, because I don't have it up here, but there was a woman who talked about, like, a friend who got cheated on, whose husband left her for, like, a hooker. They've been together for 22 years. They had 4 kids. I don't know the story, right? I don't know the details, but guaranteed that if he left her for a prostitute, that there was a sexual issue going on in the marriage, which was probably that she didn't like having sex, or she didn't like, she either wasn't having it, or she was not making it, wasn't really into it, wasn't making it an enjoyable experience. So this stuff is pretty important. It's pretty important. Now, there is more to this, though, and I wanted to talk about this before we move to the next thing, because I think Lizzie had a really good point here. So I think women are offended by men's low standards. Actually, you mean all you want is someone anything can give you. I'm not special. And men are offended by women's high standards. What do you want from me, lady? I'm just trying to live here. So we already kind of covered the first part here, right? Lizzie understands that women like to be made to feel special. But we didn't cover the second part. And men are offended by women's high standards. What do you want from me, lady? I am just trying to live here. So why I think this is an important inference is that it underlines how much men want peace, how much they want peace in their life. What I don't think a lot of women grasp is that men exist already in a state of having to prove themselves. That is it, being a man. If you're a man, you have to prove your worth in the world. And anyone who tells you that that's not true, there's another tweet the other day saying, I wish men just understood their intrinsic value. Men have intrinsic value to God, but to the physical world, you have to earn it. And that includes women, right? So God will accept you as you are, and God will forgive you for who you are, and God will love you for who you are. You do have intrinsic value in that sense. But on a practical level in the world, you have to prove yourself. So men have to go out all the time and prove themselves. And to some extent, they have to prove themselves to get a woman, right? The last thing they want in a relationship is to feel like they're not living up to a woman's standards. So, you know, when women put out all this stuff like I deserve this, I deserve this, I deserve this, and a lot of them can't even meet this like bare basic low standard criteria that guys have. Guys get really, disgusted by it. Any guy with a healthy sense of self-esteem despises female entitlement. Despise it. It's viewed in a very predatory parasitic sense. And I think fair exchange is perfectly fine. Like if you want to be honest about some stuff, and this is not my type of woman, by the way, not at all, but I try to be objective with this kind of stuff. You have a woman who really cares about her man being successful and wealthy. I don't want to say necessarily a gold digger, but what she's looking for in a man is that he can provide, and that he not can't just provide basics, but he can provide a lifestyle. A lot of people will say, well, that's really superficial. And maybe it is superficial, but is she then meeting that basic criteria for him? Even if he has like someone who cooks because he's wealthy enough, doesn't have to be the wife. Is she caring for the kids? Is she making sure he's sexually satisfied? I mean, the women who really get those guys understand that stuff. They understand it. A lot of the women who have all these demands, like, oh, you got to be 6 feet, 6 inches, six figures, you know, it's like it pisses off a lot of guys, even guys who meet those criteria, right? Even guys who meet that criteria, like I meet that criteria. You know what I mean? This is not for me. It would be such a turnoff to hear a woman put that out up there, because then immediately you're like, well, what kind of woman what are you going to bring to the table that's really extraordinary? And they invariably don't really have much of a thing to say there. But men are already burdened by life, and they don't like if women who understand men well understand that they want to give the man peace in his relationship. They want to make him feel already like he's great. They want to encourage him. They don't want to make it feel like he's not living up to their standards. That's an inversion of polarity. So when that happens in a relationship, things tend to go down the tubes from a polarity standpoint. I'm not. I understand that there are certain situations, women get frustrated because a woman might be with a guy, might be with him for a long time, and he might not be living up to his standards as a man. So a woman is inevitably going to want to try to push him further and nag him, and that's how nagging starts, right? But what happens is that she trains a man, and the man trains himself to basically respond to criticism from her. So then the man isn't actually leading. He doesn't take action unless his woman tells him to take action. The woman's frustrated by that, but the woman doesn't give him the space to actually lead, right? So I think Lizzie here with this has a proper understanding. Like, guys already feel a massive, massive burden. And even though I think in practice women don't necessarily follow this, their standards that they set on paper, because again, women want to feel like they're special. So a woman will set this high standards because I'm a special woman, I deserve to have these high standards. So I think you get the idea on that. I also want to just say thank you to Miss Alina Temi for reading the book, 3 Pillars of Attraction. Yeah, I'm going to get that book in print once I get my Fort Dix book out. And that Fort Dix book is coming out in the next few months. I'm still working on it. There is a lot I'm a perfectionist, so I really want that book to be tight. But 3 Pillars of Attraction will be out on paperback for you guys too. I wrote that book a few years ago. I've been getting so much great feedback from it. And yes, you get it. You get a PDF of it when you join the email list, patstedman.com/sign-up. So, all right, now let's move to the next post here about emotional labor. Now here's another one from Echo. Echo's look, like I said, I'm not we're having conversations here on X. I'm not trashing anybody. I like Echo. I don't agree with everything she says, but she also has some really insightful stuff. So, and again, this is one of those things, and she clarified later about some of this emotional labor stuff. Like, I understand the kind of guy that she's talking about here. So when she says a lot of men don't want a relationship, they want a woman to do the emotional labor their mother didn't, the nurturing their father never gave them, and the unconditional care they never learned to return, then call her cold for refusing to be a rehab center with a sex drive. So I do not disagree at all with this post, in the sense that when a woman is with a man like this, he's basically asking for the woman he's with to mother him, but also, sleep with him sexually, right? So it's not an appealing dynamic, and it's not surprising, accordingly, why women would feel really disgusted with that kind of relationship. So I agree with her on all of that. However, trigger warning: if you're a guy and you read they want a woman to do the emotional labor, okay, guys, emotional labor is a big trigger word for men. And it's in a number of books. For instance, there's a book I read recently, and it was actually funny. My wife was actually annoyed at me about this, because I read this book, um, well, How to Not Hate Your Husband After Kids by Jancy Dunn. So I read that book, and it's a book all about this this woman, very liberal woman, lives in Brooklyn, married, and doing all sorts of stuff, right? Like, talking, like, her marriage was falling apart, and so she's learning how things work, how to do things, etc., etc. So basically, hold on one second. My daughter was trying to get in the door. I was told my wife, "Can you please get?" She's trying to get inside the door. So Jancy Dunn, she's talking about how she was trying to repair her marriage, and she did repair her marriage in a lot of ways. So I think this is it's a good opportunity to talk about some of the themes in that book too. But my wife is a little bit annoyed at me for reading the book, because I have it lying around, How to Not Hate Your Husband After Kids, and she was annoyed because she thought other people were going to think she was reading it. And people did say that sometimes. They made some comments when they came to the house. I was like, no, I'm the one reading it. I'm a dating and relationship coach. Like, I got to read this slop to figure out what people are saying. And to be fair to Jancy, I didn't hate the book. It's clearly a feminist book, but she is not a dogmatic feminist. It's clear that she was actually trying to explore different approaches to resolving things in relationships, and did in some ways take women to task on things that they were doing. The framing of everything is still ultimately feminist. So it's one of those books where I think it presents a very if you follow it, you get as good of a relationship as you get in the longhouse. You know what I mean? That's what I'd say about it. It's the man is not leading in that kind of relationship, but and he's still taking on a lot of the burdens and stuff from the woman, but it's you can repair the connection with it. Okay, just not there's no masculine frame in it. But one of the things that she talks about, and it's the reason I'm saying this stuff, is she talks about emotional labor. And to her credit, she talks about emotional labor as something that women is really like in a woman's mind. And I can tell you this, like you're going to take the kid out someplace. So like a dad will take the kid out to get the kid dressed and go. The kid may not have perfectly matching outfit. because a lot of guys don't see this stuff and don't really care about it. Or they might be like a minute or two late, let's say to go to take their kid to preschool or something. But for a woman, all this stuff matters so much more. All these little things matter. And in some ways, it's a beautiful thing, because in some ways, a woman taking care of all those little details and thinking of those little details, that is, what makes the woman sort of the backbone of the household. That's what she makes like a house a home, right? Like this beautiful apartment that I'm living in was decorated. I mean, my wife had help from a designer, but she decorated this place, and it's gorgeous, right? It's a gorgeous place. That was my wife's attention to detail that a lot of women also possess, right? And a lot of men do not, especially when it comes to, the perceptions of other people. So, but the reality is that it can take women to a point where they become super neurotic. It becomes a whole thing for women where if everything isn't perfect, everything is falling apart. Everyone's going to be judging them. And a lot of the reason that men are not as stressed out when it comes to dealing with things, it's not necessarily the chore related differential. It's how men interface with their tasks versus women. Okay, I'm going to say that again. It's how men interface with their tasks versus women. So women are just typically, especially today, especially when they're in girl boss environments, they are more stressed out, they're more neurotic, and they take this emotional load and they view this emotional load as a burden that they have to carry. But the problem is that emotional load is made the fuck up. It's made up. It's mostly made up. It is in their heads because it's how they have decided to perceive and interact with reality. And this is a harsh truth for women, but I tell my male clients this when they're dealing with women who are struggling on this emotional load, because a lot of the advice is, well, how can you help take off her emotional load? How can you? And there's some things here that are reasonable. For instance, if you're not a proactive guy, if you're not taking care of stuff in your life, and, including to some extent around the house too, right? I'm not like super trad that man doesn't do a fucking thing in the house. Like I 100% believe in, you work together as a team and you get things done as a team. So if something needs to be done, one person does it if they can do it. I'm not about these like super strict divisions of labor. Maybe I am about the division of labor on the fundamental things, but when you have little stuff to do, my wife's putting down the kids, I'm going to clean up the rest of the kitchen. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, to me, this is not a big deal. And if you're not doing this kind of stuff as a guy, if your wife is putting down the kids and there's a mess out there and you're just dicking around, and then she gets done putting out the kids and she has to put the kitchen away because that she's a woman. I don't, maybe you can call me a feminist, but I think that's just kind of, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. If you had other really important work to do that you couldn't take care of it, fine. But you should always be trying to take things off your woman's plate if you can, right? But if we're talking about she's frazzled by every little thing, little things don't get done, things don't get done perfectly the way that she wants to, that is not your problem. That's her problem. She needs to let go. She needs to learn how to let go. It's a stress management issue. And if you're accepting the fact that her stress about everything is your fault, then you are en route to a very, very bad relationship dynamic. It's just how it is, right? Because now you have taken on, you're saying her emotions are your fault. And this is it's a fear shame loop, right? So she's afraid of this and this and that. And then she's making you responsible for it. So you're feeling shame. And this is how you disintegrate a relationship. Universally, it's how you disintegrate a relationship. So whenever I hear a woman talk about, men want a woman to do emotional labor or deal with the emotional load, I want to blow my brains out, It's no offense to Echo. I know she was actually talking about something else in the end, but this term is feminist cancer. It's what it is. It's a cancer on relationships, and it's disempowering to women because it tells women that they have no ability to regulate their own emotions at all. That they that and there's a lot of trad relationships that are like this, unfortunately, where the man gets to be the titular leader of the household, but all that really means is that he deals with every other person's stress. He's responsible for every other person's stress. And look, I believe in being responsible for actions. You're going to be the leader. Ultimate responsibility for things that happen lies with you, because if you know didn't delegate something or didn't take care of it, you know what I mean? Like, you have to take responsibility, and you should always try to take responsibility. But you taking responsibility doesn't preclude her taking responsibility too. Successful organizations, successful partnerships are always based around everybody taking responsibility as much as they can. I know a lot of women, and I'm not saying this, I guess, because I'm sexist, right? I'm not saying this, though, in a derogatory way towards women. There is a general issue, though, with women taking responsibility and accountability. And that leads to them, first off, really, chauvinistic perspectives against women being created. But it also leads to women not getting any kind of agency and not feeling good about themselves. So emotional labor is something that needs to die. Now, at the same time, it does exist, and it exists for a good reason, because women, as being the primary nurturers and caretakers in a household, also do in practice have the burden, especially with kids, of dealing with emotions, dealing with other people's emotions, right? And so you have a tendency for women to become enmeshed. And this is what I was talking about in my response to Echo. Women who struggle with emotional labor are actually struggling with anxiety and codependence. They are unable to self-regulate or create boundaries around people and experiences. The demand that guys get rid of their own needs in a relationship so the woman feels unburdened is a reflection of this. I feel overwhelmed, so you need to help regulate me. It's a call for more codependence, which is why the relationship never really improves. Women who cannot let go and are unable to be emotionally available for their husband need to adjust their perspective and drop unnecessary expectations. But most of all, they need to individuate. They need to take more time for themselves. They need to put their own oxygen mask on, not make others follow them into the abyss of selflessness. Then they can be a wife and mother without so much resentment. Then they can give as well as receive. Emotional labor is a term women use to justify their lack of inner work on this issue. Learn to ask for what you need rather than demand others stop having needs. Say no rather than feel guilty and resentful when you're tapped out. Take responsibility for how you feel, or don't bother getting into a relationship because you're too immature to handle intimacy without losing yourself. Okay? So there's a lesson in this stuff for women, and there is a lesson in this stuff for men too. For women, it is on breaking codependent dynamics. So women easily, because of this emotional nurturing and to some extent, really deep connection with children, they can lose themselves once they become a mother. So there's a tendency of women to become codependent anyway. I mean, I'm not saying men don't become codependent too. And ultimately, if a woman starts this process, the man falls into it as well, right? Because it's a codependent relationship. And, that's what we were talking about, the fear, shame cycle, where a man will then, feel like it's his fault and have to do this and this. Like, so that's a codependent dynamic, because now he's judging his worth based on what his woman's moods are, how she thinks, how she's feeling, right? But women in general have a little bit of this tendency to become codependent because of their more emotional nature, their desire typically for more connection and intimacy. But when women have children, it becomes even more likely to happen, because when women have children, what happens next is that the woman the woman gets drained from those interactions, from having to deal with kids who have no real they just have emotions and they spill out, right? Especially young children. They're not able to kind of take care of their own emotions. So a woman feels enmeshed with her kids, starts to lose her sense of self. And so what does she do from there? She takes it out on the husband. She blames the husband for losing her sense of self because she doesn't know how else. It's a natural reaction. And this is how you have this nasty cycle that occurs, especially when a couple has kids, that leads to the disintegration of the relationship because it goes kids first and then wife second, husband last. And so that's how it is for the dynamic. So how you change this is not by following her demands necessarily to take care of more stuff with the kids, because what she'll typically say is, I can't I can't meet the needs in the relationship because I don't have my own needs met. So you need to do you need to do this, you need to do that, and I'm not going to do things for you. It's not the right route, or at least it's not exactly the right route. You may inadvertently need to do more things for the kids, but you're doing them fundamentally because you're giving her more time for herself. So it's not like so much even that you need to like be around while she's still enmeshed and do little tasks to like dump little bits of this anxiety onto you from her. It's she needs to go do something for herself, take time for herself, and let you do things. And I wonder actually to what extent, because when I mention this stuff, it's pretty disarming for a lot of women when you mention this, because I'm saying all this feminist stuff is bullshit. I'm not responsible for your emotions, and you should go to the spa. They're like, wait, what? What? Because I'm not talking about this from the standpoint of like entitlement. Like, I'm not responsible for your emotions. You just got to learn to deal with it. No. That doesn't work. It's not going to work. So what's the point in saying it? And it doesn't operate in a, high trust, good faith manner towards the woman you love and you'd have children with. So what you're actually want to be doing here, like you're pushing back against it because you want her to take responsibility for her emotions and to redevelop her individualism, to break out of a codependent pattern. You do this by taking some of that stress and enmeshment off of her, right? That's what you do. So I'm all about like, hey, what can I do so that you can have a break with my wife? I'm always thinking about that, because I want her to have time for herself. You're overwhelmed. You need to do some yoga, but you haven't had a chance to do it. What can I do so you take the time? And I had some fucking retard comment under this. Some woman was like, "Oh, so you're saying that like, so if she wants to take a week off, she can like you should be able to do that for her, right?" And I'm like, why do people have to come to these like ridiculous extreme positions? Like it's because they can't refute the argument. Like you you should be able to, on a regular basis, maybe not every single day, but at the very least on the weekends, you should be able to give your woman some time to herself. Ideally, she should have some time to herself every day. If not every day, most days of the week. Maybe it's only an hour. Maybe on the weekends it's a little bit more than that, 2 or 3 hours. Maybe you get her an afternoon. I'll take the kids out on like a day trip some afternoons. My wife needs to just, she's pregnant. She needs some time just for herself. It's totally fine with me. Like I volunteer it. I'm happy to do it. And I get to spend time with the kids too. It's for me, it's a great experience as well. But I'm thinking about her, right? I'm thinking about her. And that is what you have to be doing. You have to be encouraging a woman's individuality. And I want to, this is not one of the topics I wanted to talk about, but I do want to just take a moment to digress on it because it's important. A lot of guys have this idea that the only way to get a woman is to how do I put it? The only way to get a woman is to, you have to set all these controls around her. And I'm sorry, unless you have a lot of power, you just can't do that anymore. I don't personally don't want to do it. It's just not an enjoyable kind of relationship dynamic to me to have a woman controlled. I don't like that. But I'm just going to tell you, putting aside my personal preferences, because there's a lot of men out there who want to control women. Okay, they may not resonate with my work, but there is a lot of men out there who want to control women. Most men, though, they just don't want to be disrespected. And so they default to trying to control a woman in order to avoid having her do something disrespectful to him or to make him feel emotionally neglected in some manner. What I encourage guys to do is, if you want, the only way to get a woman to really dedicate herself to you today, because you can't force it unless you have a lot of power, you can't force it. Okay? There's too many between society, between all the various systems, like they're going to go after you as a man. You can actually get yourself into some pretty serious trouble. They're going to label you an abuser, right or wrong, whatever. It's going to happen. Okay? It's going to happen. No one's going to have sympathy for you. The only way to get a woman to follow you and to submit to you, to surrender to you in 2025 is to absolutely be the biggest advocate for her personal growth and individuality. You need to encourage her to do what she needs to do to grow best. If you are the biggest person who is trying to help her, who is to be her best self, including if it means that she can't be with you, then she's going to fall in love with you, because what guy is going to compare to that? She's not going to find a guy who's going to compare to that. She's not going to find a guy who supports her like that. Now, of course, when I say supporting her and doing this stuff, I don't mean that you are, acting like a cuck and like your life doesn't matter. It's the opposite. You are doing your own thing and you're saying this is what you want. And maybe it's not what she wants, but you're giving her a very clear option with it. And you can also explain to her how you'd like to help her grow and what you think is good for her growth. But the bottom line is that you have to be helping her to do better. So this is a big fundamental for the last and final topic we're going to be going into about passion and intimacy in marriages over the long term. But I want you guys to understand this as a fundamental underlying difference in dynamics. You have relationships that are based on power dynamics, and there's always some degree of power dynamic in any relationship, because we are drawn to things that are valuable. Like a woman's not going to be attracted to you if you're like a vagrant, right? It's not going to be. And a man's not going to be into a woman if she's a fat whore, right? Not going to be interested in her. So there's always some value differential going on. But once there's a sort of equilibrium, like, okay, we're at approximate value, we are attracted to each other. What kind of relationship are you going to have? Are you going to try to dominate each other from there? Or are you going to try to raise each other's value and move higher? Two different types of relationships. When I have 3 tenets of being a dynamic man, the first tenet is facing your fears, right? Second tenet is expanding awareness. Third tenet is operating in good faith. This is what I'm talking about. There are 2 types of relationships you can have, not just with women, with everything, but we're focusing on women, right? It's all about developing high faith, good faith, high trust relationships. Everything is about that, because that's the only way to have a successful and enjoyable long-term relationship. Otherwise, it's going to feel parasitic and stressful. You're going to be losing energy constantly in that relationship, and it'll probably fall apart. You'll probably get cheated on because it's a bad faith, low trust relationship. There can be attraction in that because there can be sexual energy and power dynamics. But this is the fundamentals that you have to think about. You have to be building relationships based on win-wins. That you want to be the advocate for the woman in your life. I'm just going to highlight for a second here, Randy. I'm glad you're enjoying it, man. I appreciate it. I like this new format, and we're going to keep it going with this. It takes a little bit more preparation, but you know what? Like, it's time to get serious, guys. I got so much good content for you, and I want to make these shows great. I want you guys to learn a lot from it, understand what it's like, how I think, and what it's like working with me. So anyway, this is I guess a good precursor for people. So I received a comment today, and honestly, this comment is what sparked me to want to do this show. So I was talking about I don't even know what I was talking about. I was talking about that's right. I was talking about sex. I was talking about that story I mentioned earlier about that man who had been married, had 4 kids with a woman, married for like 22 years, left her for a hooker. And I was talking about the importance in marriage of women having sex regularly with their man, right? Not just having sex, but having sex eagerly, making it a good experience, making, prioritizing it, right? So we're coming full circle here with the whole thing. I didn't, bring attention to this person's name because they're not a big account, and some people don't want to get attention, right? But sex has a function beyond reproduction, at least for us humans. We use it to pair bond as well. Once that bond is crystallized through commitment, there's no gap to close. Then intimacy loses its leverage and therefore the appeal to her. She can't simply be available. Now, what I want to say here is that this person is correct in terms of how it typically happens in relationships. Because what typically happens in relationships, and let's go back to what we just talked about with codependence, right? You're two different people. You're attracted to each other. You start getting closer together. You get to a certain point, you decide you're going to commit. Now you're a unified whole, right? Especially if you get married, etc. You go further and further together. And this is the honeymoon period, is this attraction, right? This driving closer and closer together. And then the honeymoon period stops when you get here. Now you've merged into one, right? You've merged into one. The problem is that once you've merged into one, as this individual is saying, right? As they're saying, once that bond is crystallized through commitment, there's no gap to close, then intimacy loses its leverage and therefore the appeal to her. She simply can't be available. So she doesn't want to have sex because there's no charge. So what people gather from this is that, well, you have to decide whether you want to be here, where you can have attractions but no intimacy, right? Or whether you want to have intimacy but no attraction, no desire, no spark, right? And there's just an assumption that once you're here, it's over. It's over. And you just accept that trade-off. It's not true. It is not fucking true. Okay? That's not what has to happen in a relationship. And I understand that most people, including most relationship coaches, don't understand this. Okay? They'll give you like little like tactics and tips, and they're not bad. Like, go do something new together, or because what that does is it creates some degree of novelty in general in the life that you're going through something new with them. And so there's a deeper sense of bond between the two of you as a result of that. But it's not really getting to the heart of the issue. The heart of the issue is that you're enmeshed. You're enmeshed. You're codependent with each other. Okay? When you get to this point of codependence, typically one party will want to get out of it at some point. They want to escape. And the reason is because we are individuals. We have individual personalities, individual souls. We want to remain individuals. So we want union, but we want to be individuals. In order to recreate tension here, in order to recreate that tension, you have to differentiate from each other. You have to separate from each other, right? Now, a lot of people will do all sorts of weird lifestyle hacks that damage trust, like let's be poly, because now there's separation. Now they create all these complicated dynamics, ways to recreate this. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can actually have your cake and eat it too, but it's difficult and it's subtle. And this is how it's called breaking through gridlock, basically. So when you're in this codependent state, you need to assert your independence within it. And a lot of that means you have to go after what you want in the relationship that you're not getting. So let's say you're a man and you're not getting the sex you want in the relationship. Well, you have to make an issue out of it. You have to stop. You have to start breaking out of, the fear shame cycle that we talked about earlier, where you're emotionally caretaking for her, and then, so you emotionally, she criticizes you, you pull back, she chases you, including giving you sex, then you feel closer to her, then she pulls back. This is a dance. There's a lot of different kinds of dances that couples have, but this is a dance that a lot of couples have with frustrated sex, right? Frustrated sex lives. I'm just using sex as an example because it's a common one, but there's all sorts of different ways that we feel enmeshed, right? And if we're talking about passion, excitement, a lot of that has to do with sex. You get used to a certain way of doing things, and you're afraid of being seen in a different way. You're afraid of their reaction. So you have to face your fear. Remember, tenet number 1, facing your fear. You have to face your fear within the relationship. So guys, understand that to get a girl, you have to face some degree of rejection. So you face fear, and then, with competence of what to do, you get the girl. But they don't understand that then once you get the girl, if you don't face your fear again with her now, it's going to become stagnant. You're going to hit that codependence, and one of you is going to move out of it because you're going to get tired of the pattern, tired of not getting your needs met, tired of feeling like you can't be yourself. So the scary thing here is that when you're facing this gridlock, when you're differentiating and you're breaking out of these patterns, what you're essentially doing is you are killing this. You're killing the relationship because you're rising above it. You're saying that you're not going to let yourself be manipulated by her emotions anymore. You want what you want. You want it with her. Is she willing to come to that next level with you? If she doesn't have you to play in this gridlock, but she loves you, then she's going to want that. Now, doesn't always work. Sometimes you're with someone at a different level of consciousness, or they want a different path, and they go a different direction. But you want the next level of her. She's at this current level of consciousness, current way of interacting with you. You move here and you say, I can't be down here anymore. I got to be here. You want to come with me? She's either going to get out or she's going to go up with you. But there's a lot of tension that's happening during this period as you guys are both moving to this next level. What happens is that you move to this next level, and all the tension returns, but you feel closer at the same time. So it's like your old relationship ended and you're in a new relationship. So everything is exciting and new. You're exploring each other for the first time because you're at a new level of each other. It's like you renegotiate the contract to get back in it again. And that is intimacy. And it's actually real deep intimacy. It's not fake intimacy, which is I'm afraid to lose you, so I want to hold on to you close. Okay? I hope you guys are understanding the difference here. It's subtle. There's a great book that talks about this, Passionate Marriage, by I think it's David Schnark. Phenomenal book. But this is what happens in a relationship. You either get to the next level with them, so they let part of themselves die in a pattern, and you let part of yourself die in your pattern, and you create a new level. You just keep leveling up. You level up in what you get. So the sex is different. The sex is more exciting. But there's not this sense of needing to, you don't lose the trust that was there before. So it's not like a new person in that sense. You can trust them, and you trust them more than ever because you keep facing your fears together. It is the most beautiful thing in the world. It really is. And it's why, I wouldn't say that I've had like an easy relationship all the time, because I, push these levels, and my wife pushes me in her own way. And that's why, like, we have such an amazing relationship despite everything we've been through, because we're constantly ready and allowing ourselves to let different patterns die to face a new fear so we can get something better. And it does get better, because when you move up like this, everything in life is about these reconciling of opposites, right? So you have the masculine, the feminine. We are integrating, we're developing, and we're getting closer and closer together. So we're unifying, but we're unified as separate individuals. It's interdependence. It's not codependence, right? Taking from Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's interdependence. And your relationship gets more and more interdependent the more you become an individual in your relationship. So I'll end with that, guys. As always, Kelly Klein, thank you for the support. Thank you for the kind words. Great to see you too. Guys, we're gonna keep doing this. Ideally every week. Maybe I'd like to do it even more. We'll see if we got the material to do it. But you guys know where to find me on X, on YouTube, and sign up for my email list, patstedman.com/sign/-up. Okay, sign up. Just a dash between sign and up. And if you want bigger content, get my masterclass. And if you want to work with me, fill out an application. It's all on my website, patstedman.com. I love you guys, and I will see you next time on the Dynamic Man podcast.